This is just a Corsa exhaust, which, by the way, now you can get 5% off your Corsa exhaust by using coupon code Tedward. And then you can sound like that. I'm sure a lot of you out there looking at E92 M3s are between like a new car, like for example, a Honda Civic Type R, but then you're like, wait a minute, I can get a rear-wheel drive German V8 that puts out over 400 horsepower and revs to 400 RPM? Like, sign me up, but it's out of warranty. So it's pretty important to be realistic about what you're getting yourself into when you buy a car like this. It may be in the $20,000 to $35,000 range, depending on year and spec and miles and all that good stuff, but it is good. But it does come with certain downfalls, and you've got to be aware of them. So first of all, if you've ever looked at a forum or a Facebook page about the E92 M3, you already know that rod bearings are the main issue, and everyone, you know, anytime anyone hears a sound, everyone's going to tell you, oh, it's rod bearings. Yes, so let's just get that out of the way. If you don't care about rod bearings, skip ahead, but this is where we're at. So rod bearings, basically the clearances are too tight and they will start to wear and they will seize to the crankshaft and basically grenade your engine. Or they'll spin if you're lucky, and maybe you'll be able to salvage your engine. There's no indicated lifespan of these rod bearings. Typically, you're gonna wanna replace them before you hit like 80, 90,000 miles, and I'm creeping up to that ever so quickly. But it seems to be common consensus that just letting your car warm up properly is the best thing to do to allow them to last. So if you're looking at like a 5-6 owner car, you may have no idea what it did in the 60 or 80,000 miles that it's seen before you came along. And that's usually around $2,000 with parts and labor, so budget accordingly. Number 2, throttle actuators. This one is, it can hit any time. You never know if it's gonna hit at 25,000 miles or 60,000 miles. Mine went at about 64,000 miles. What happens is the throttle actuators have these little plastic gears, and these throttle actuators are big, they're beefy, they're heavy, but inside what actually moves that throttle is this little plastic gear, and the teeth get worn out and eventually they stop working, and you will know immediately they've stopped working because you're gonna go into limp mode and you really won't be able to drive the car much more than like 30 miles an hour under like 3,000 RPM with reduced power. So parts alone is about $1,000 to $1,200. You can do that yourself if you want. It's still a little tricky, so if you're not a good DIYer, you still want to have that done. Quick job, you're not looking at a lot of money for that, but still, you know, budget $1,500 if you're gonna have someone do that for you with parts. I don't want to just be negative. This is a fantastic car, and there are a few good things. Number 1, it has fantastic cup holders. I know that's stupid, but like German cars for a long time did not have good cup holders, and I like to drink like a soda or a seltzer or whatever, and this actually holds your water. Don't think you're gonna go pull like a G around a corner and it's gonna hold it in. That's not gonna happen, but it is reasonable for like highway cruising. And the build quality of this car is pretty good. I mean, it's still just a 3 Series, but it's held up really well. I've got 70,000 miles on my car, and what you will notice is there are things that will start to squeak and creak depending on temperatures and whatever, and it's not terrible, but once in a while, you'll hear something and you'll say, oh, I wonder what that is, and you'll start checking things, you know, make sure you don't have change somewhere silly on hard plastic. Then you put your hand up on that dashboard and it stops, and you're like, fuck. It comes and goes, and that's just the way it is, especially if you drive a car hard. I mean, you've got a lot of vibration happening up front, and because of that vibration, motor mounts are definitely a wear item in this car. They are gonna wear anywhere from 60 to 80,000 miles. They're about $200 for a set, and you are gonna pay up the nose to have them replaced. I haven't done this yet. Pretty sure service book is indicating that it should be like 4 hours per side. That's a lot of money. So again, if you're buying a higher mileage car, check to see that these things are done, because every time you think you're getting that screaming deal on your $24,000, $25,000 M3, it can creep up with $3,000 to $5,000 of maintenance costs like that. Which brings me to oil changes. Oil changes are not cheap on this car either. 10W60 is like unicorn piss, and it's not cheap, and you're gonna need a lot of it because this takes, what is it, like 8 liters of oil, maybe a little more? Yeah, it's like 8.5. So you're going to be putting a lot of oil in this car, and you're going to be wanting to change it frequently, especially if you haven't had your rod bearings done, because if you're going over that, you're starting to panic, like, oh my God, am I damaging my car if I drive this over 5,000 miles? So there's definitely like another side of ownership, and it's not financial, it's emotional. There is some stress to owning this car because you're always kind of wondering, like, what's that noise? Is it happening to me? Some smaller items. The seatbelt butler on the E92, the two-door, doesn't always work. Mine worked for so long and it's been so good. And then suddenly it works like shit. And now almost every time the seatbelt just about gets to me, flies back. And then because the butler arm is extended, it's even more of a pain in the ass to grab the seatbelt than it would be without it altogether. My trunk actuator, really weak, pretty shitty. And sometimes when I go to close my trunk, it won't close and it bounces. So then I have to do this finagling thing where I turn the car on, turn it off, use the button to reset everything, and then it'll close, and it sucks. Like, and it always happens when you need to be somewhere, when you're like, oh, I just parked, I'm in New York City, I've got to run to this meeting or whatever, and then you go to get your bag out of the trunk, oh, it won't close anymore. So stupid shit like that. Those are the kind of things that you deal with on these cars, and that's why when you see like a $25,000 M3, again, treat it like you're buying like a poor man's Ferrari F355. It's not engine out service, but it adds up, and like those little things when you're like, oh, it's just this, oh, it's just that, oh, it's just this. Suddenly you're like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in, which brings me to my next point. The transmission. There's two options. You can get the 7-speed DCT or the 6-speed manual. This was really like the first good automated manual gearbox that BMW ever put in a car, because otherwise SMG 1, 2, and 3, not great and pretty miserable for daily driving. This is a lot more palatable for daily driving, but it's still not a torque converter automatic, so it's not smooth. Highway driving's fine, but if you're gonna be in a lot of stop and go traffic, it will wear on you. And it won't wear on you the first month, but it will over time. And then you're gonna start to be like, why did I buy this fucking gearbox? But the pro to that is on a racetrack or when you're having some spirited drives, it suits the car so well. And yeah, save the manuals, blah, blah, blah. I've got other manuals. This gearbox is a lot of fun, and it's really charming that you get to have something like this in a BMW. But with that DCT comes additional service. So you're gonna have to replace the fluid somewhere around 70 or 60, 70,000 miles. And when you go to replace the fluid, this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna buy your fluid. No one's gonna let me in. You're gonna buy your fluid, and then you're gonna go to change it. You're gonna take the pan off, and then you're gonna find out that your gearbox is leaking from every imaginable gasket and hose in the gearbox. So then you're gonna go and you're gonna buy gaskets, you're gonna buy hoses, you're gonna buy the under tray, and then you're gonna realize, I can't do this myself. So you're gonna pay somebody else like 8 hours of labor to do that for you. So what you thought was like a quick, ooh, I'm just gonna do a little fluid change and a little filter, a little cartridge filter, turns into $1,000 like that. It's not 300 bucks. While we're sitting in traffic, we should talk about the brakes. These brakes are actually really good. They don't look like much because they're not like, they're just like dual piston. They're not like these nice sexy monoblocks that you get on an AMG or like new Audis, but they work. And if you put some pads in them, they're fantastic because the rotors they give you on this car are actually monsters. Now, they're not perfect. They're basically two-piece rotors, but they're like one-piece, two-piece rotors, if that makes any sense. You can't remove the rotor from the hat. Kind of annoying because they designed them to look that way, but whatever. Annoying, expensive, heavy, but geez, they definitely hold up to abuse. And I'm talking about abuse on track. So I'm actually going to be putting a much harder pad in here. I'm already on a harder pad than stock, and they did really well. There's not even a lip on them after like 2 or 3 events last year. So I'm very impressed with the rotors. And if you go through like FCP Euro, you're going to get your lifetime warranty. So every time they're destroyed, send them back, get new ones for free. Good deal, right? And most recently, I just put 18 by 10 wheels on each corner with 275/35 R18s on, and they fit. How cool is that? That you can go get a car like this and just put massive fucking rubber up front. And yeah, there's a little tiny bit of rub when I'm like reversing and I hit a bump or something like that. But to be honest, I'm pretty impressed that you can just shove these on here without any spacers or any modification, and they just work. It's fantastic. And the thing you're probably least worried about when you're buying a new car, but you'll think about every time you drive it, is fuel economy. it is bad. It's really bad, actually. And on the highway, you can eke out like maybe 22 miles per gallon. But when I say that, I mean at like 70, 72 miles per hour. You're not gonna be getting that if you're going normal highway speed, 75, 80, especially in your BMW M3. Like, you didn't buy this car to drive as slow as your Corolla, did you? And the tank is not very big. It's only 16.1 gallons. So I'm frequently visiting my friends at gas stations. I was always pretty used to owning stressful cars, so it's not the worst thing in my mind. But like, God, some days I think Honda Accord with warranty, automatic transmission, 34 miles per gallon. I guess that's just not me though. So I hope you can make an educated decision on whether this car is right for you. Ask me questions below, because obviously we could go into hours and hours about throttle actuators, rod bearings, tunes, exhaust, blah, blah, blah. Like, everything is a thing in these cars. So feel free to ask away below. Remember, the best way to support my channel is by watching my channel and subscribing and interacting with the content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to respect the drive.